Hi, Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and here's another interview in my series of interviews with subscribers. Enjoy. Andrea Roberts, as we all know her as Andy, and she is the sister to Jeannie, who we did a few weeks ago on here. That sounds bad. That we interviewed on here a few weeks ago. And so, welcome, Andy. And there might be a little bit of lag in Andy's video part, but I think that'll be okay. We won't worry too much about that. So let's get right into it. I've already said your name, but where are you located?
I am living in a town called Rolling Meadows. It's maybe about 35, 45 miles northwest of Chicago, Illinois, in the US.
Okay. And so let's get right in. So, first of all, are you a quilter, a sewer, or a crafter? I know the answer to this, but I want other people to hear it.
A crafter. Though
A
I did
crafter.
do though I did do sewing and quilting many years ago, but I'm really a crafter.
Okay, so my questions from here on in will be geared more towards you as a crafter than a quilter.
Okay.
So, how long have you been crafting? Has this been a lifetime thing, or is this something you got into recently?
I've been crafting off and on over 40 years.
Okay.
So I guess that's not a recent thing, and it sort of ties into I think what your next question may be about how I got into it.
Yeah, and that is
Um,
my next question. So go for it.
yeah, well, my ex-husband got accepted at the University of Chicago in their MBA program, so we moved from just outside of the Washington D.C. area to Chicago. And I knew absolutely no one. We lived in married student housing, and one morning I was going up in the elevator, and this lady introduced herself, and once she found out I was new, she invited me to join this small group of women. They called it their sewing circle, and so I figured, well, why not? And there were, I think, a total of maybe six of us, but the women, they did cross stitch, embroidery, knitting. We did have a quilter in the group, but I became fascinated with the cross stitching, and so that's how it got. My journey on crafting got started, and that was back in '79.
So you basically started out more as a cross stitcher. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes,
And
that's
then,
that's how I got started. So,
so that's kind of led into
and
all kinds of other things then.
well, yes, and my journey's been interesting because what I have discovered about myself is that I'll find something I'm interested in, I throw myself into it, and then burn myself out. And then it's, oh, that over there looks interesting. But I did the cross stitch for quite some time. Um, Almost every Christmas after I started, I was making cross stitch ornaments for my mom. But the thing that killed it for me, one year I decided I was going to make an evening bag for Jeannie.
Mm.
And it was black, it was quilted on one side, and I was cross stitching a tropical bird on the other side. And I decided, wouldn't it be neat to do the tiny glass beads in the tropical bird?
Uh-huh. Right.
And I had the experience of dropping the beads into the rug and having to vacuum them up. And I never did any more cross stitch after that incident.
I can see why that would be a problem. Yeah. So, did anybody in your family influence you? And what I mean by that is, did you have, like, when you were growing up, were there people in your family that were also doing crafts of one sort or another?
No, no, not really. Um, when Jeannie mentioned that she was doing sewing, she was older than I was. So
Hmm.
when she was going out and doing that with her friend Brenda, I didn't really notice or see any of that. So basically, it was not until I moved to Chicago that I really got into the crafting. I did do some sewing in high school. I made my clothes when I was in high school, And the only other major thing that I did before then, when I got married, I made my wedding dress. I sewed
Oh,
my wedding
wow.
dress.
That's a lot of work. And here you are with the beads saying that put you off cross stitching. Did making a wedding dress put you off of sewing? Because I've heard those aren't
Well,
easy.
it was well. This was a different wedding dress, and to this day, I'm amazed that my parents never disagreed or tried to discourage me. I decided I didn't want to go with a white dress, so I went with turquoise, and it was a raw silk A-line dress, and it had a double bibbed collar, and then I had a turquoise hat. And Jeannie was my maid of honor, and so she had the identical dress, but in a darker shade of turquoise,
Mm.
and she actually wore kind of a headpiece. So
Oh,
it was
geez.
quite interesting to see the reactions when people saw me walking down the aisle in a turquoise dress.
I think that would be really quite sharp with that. Something definitely not the usual kind of thing. So makes it
Yes,
memorable for you that day and for the people who came to your wedding as well.
yes.
Yeah, that
I've
sounds
I've
good.
always I've always marched to the beat of a different drummer. So
Well, I think a lot of crafters and artists and that do. I think that's because of our level of creativity. All right. So my next question for you then is, what is your favorite creation that you have done over time, or something that stands out in your mind besides your wedding dress?
my favorite creation actually is a photograph that I took. Um, and it was a photograph I took at sunrise at Gettysburg National Park.
Hmm.
Every year, while our baby sister was born, for a number of years, Jeannie and I and Carla took road trips. And I got on this kick around the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. So I would fly out to the East Coast twice a year, my birthday and Carla's birthday, and we would pick a park and we would travel.
Hmm.
Um, and this particular time, we got to Gettysburg in the evening, and then the very next day was my birthday. And for some reason, I woke up early. I opened up the curtains, and there was fog that was so dense I couldn't even see past the parking lot. And I got so excited. I threw on my clothes, didn't brush my teeth, didn't comb my hair. I grabbed my camera bag, my tripod, and I took off. And I got this beautiful sunrise picture. There's like a cannon in the distance, and the sun is coming up over the hill. And it turned out to be a beautiful picture. But I think what makes it so special for me is that the trip to Gettysburg was the last trip that Jeannie and I were able to take our baby sister on before she started having difficulty as a result of the Alzheimer's.
Hmm. Okay, well, it's kind of a sad memory, but at the same time, how lucky that you were able to get that kind of picture and that you have that memory associated with it and everything
Yes.
like that. So, do you do a lot of photography now?
I'm starting to pick back up with it. It's interesting how things sort of come together, or you can justify different things in your head because I became interested in photography and I have everything I need with regards to the photography, but I decided, okay, I really have to get back into scrapbooking to justify all the money that I'm spending for the photography. So, uh, but all of that helped because my last couple of years in my job, I was designing actual online training, and so the things like composition and color that I was learning from the scrapbooking and the photography have helped me to actually create screens for my online learning because we didn't have access to a graphic designer. So it all
So,
kind of helped out.
yeah, well, one thing leads into another. I've always found that too. So, you mentioned scrapbooking as well. So, I know you're still working on scrapbooking, but what was it about scrapbooking that appealed to you when you got into that?
When my sons were growing up, I wanted to document them growing up. And at one point, I later read you're not really doing that for the people you're scrapbooking because chances are they're not going to want all of that stuff
Mm,
anyway.
yeah, true.
Um, but I was doing it for myself, and then I got out of it for a little while, but then got back into it because Jeannie had done some research and found out that Alzheimer's was a good scrapbooking was a good activity for people who were in the early
Mm,
stages of Alzheimer's. And so we were doing kind of Zoom meetings before Zoom even came around. We would, get to, we would get together every week and we would scrap the book long distance. And so we continued that and pretty much until Carla couldn't do it anymore.
right.
Um, then I kind of faded out of it. But then when I really got into the photography, then I got back into it again. So
Yeah. Yeah. Scrapbooking is a good thing for that. I mean, I did it for many years. I have kind of gone in a different direction, as you know now. But yeah, I keep
yeah,
thinking maybe I should take it back up again. I haven't done it in a while. And the reason I did it was similar. I thought, well, if I ever get to a stage in my life where I can't remember things, at least I have my scrapbooks. I can, you know, look at it. So yeah. Um, okay, so that
and you were
leads.
actually you're well, I just wanted to say that you were actually, unfortunately, my first inspiration to do mini journals.
Oh,
And thanks to you, I have a huge tub of mini journals that I've made that I haven't used. So thank you very much, Stephen.
oh, you're welcome. I have a big tub of them too. So whenever I learned it too, yeah, I've got a lot of stuff that I don't know what to do with. And I figure someday someone will clean out my house and they'll just throw it all away. It won't mean anything to them. But then at that point in life, it won't mean anything to me either. So whatever. But so
Well,
that brings, what's that?
I was just going to say what I'm hoping will happen is that when my son cleans out my place after I die, people are going to go, "Oh my gosh, an artistic genius," and I'll become famous posthumously.
Okay, there is that chance too as well. But show me the money now. That's what I say. So, what type of crafter would you describe yourself as? And what I mean by that, because I think you've already kind of answered it, because I would say that you're kind of versatile. You're an experimental. But how would you
Yeah.
characterize yourself? Am I on the right track or?
Yes, yes, you are. Um, I'm curious. I've always been intellectually curious, and so when I see something, I'm sort of like a prey dog that is walking along and it sees a squirrel and it goes, "Oh, squirrel!" That's kind of how I am,
Yeah.
and that's how I've gotten into. And I've tried so many different kinds of crafts. So I would say I'm curious. It's intellectual curiosity.
I think that's a good description. I think a lot of people are like that. You know, we just go beyond everything because we want to know how it works or what we can do with that. I
Yes,
call it experimenting. I'm always experimenting with it.
yes.
Um, so do you have a favorite tool or a favorite technique that you return to time and time again, or something you can't live without?
Two tools. My favorites, of course, number one is my camera. My second favorite tool are inks.
Mm,
I love ink. So I've got all of the Tim Holtz colors. I've got all of the Gina K design colors. I just, there's something about the color of ink and the things that you can do with ink that keeps me mesmerized even after all these years.
I know the feeling. Yes. Same thing. I've got all of Tim Holtz's inks, and although I haven't used them in a while, they're probably drying up. But yep, I love them too. So, if you had all the money in the world, what one piece of equipment or tool or something that you don't own now that you would like to invest in?
A printer that would allow me to print
Hmm.
poster size photographs
Ah, okay.
because
Yeah.
I have everything I need. Anything that I get now, it's just like, oh, that would be kind of fun. Um, and I'm actually trying to move away from continuing to buy things and trying to figure out, okay, this is what I want to do. Do I have something that already that I can use as a substitute, or is there something that I can modify in some way so it simulates what I'm actually trying to do? So I'm trying to like get out of the buying thing because I'm getting older and I actually need to start downsizing. So
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yep, for sure. So have you, now you mentioned that you did Zoom before Zoom was popular with your scrapbooking, and you mentioned that you got into cross stitching with a group. So have you ever actually belonged to a group, maybe online or a physical group that you know you're a regular member of, to to enhance whatever you're doing in your crafting world?
okay, does I does it have to be like continuous?
No, no, it doesn't have to be
Oh,
continuous.
okay. Okay, that's good. Um, I tend actually not to be a group kind of person. Um, I'm actually introverted, and so being by myself is how I re-energize myself. I've taken classes. Probably the closest thing to a guild would be that sewing circle, and I did that for a year and a half. Um, and I've taken classes here and there, and I did join a photography group, but I tend to be happiest when I'm sitting there and I can focus and no distractions
Mm.
and just relax.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yep.
not really.
I definitely understand that feeling. But you want to know something? I have discovered that amongst artists and all of us that are crafters, sewers, or whatever, as far as I'm concerned, and we've had this discussion before, that we are artists. We're just not maybe recognized because we're not hanging in a museum somewhere or getting millions of dollars for something we've created.
Hmm.
But I think the creative process, I think, tends to be a loner process. I mean,
Yes.
it's good to get together with people, like at a retreat or something like that. But most of the creative process I find comes from when I'm doing this by myself. And as you said,
Hmm.
no interruptions, kind of a thing. You can focus better. So yeah, I get that. Also, I get usually kicked out of any of the groups I belong to, but that's a story for another day. So moving on, let's see. So, what's your favorite store for supplies and materials, whether it's a more brick and mortar one or an online one or combination thereof?
In terms of brick and mortar, excuse me, so many of the really great places
Mm.
that I would go to have long since closed. The last viable one that I'm going to is a store called Craft Fancy, and it's in the next town over Arlington Heights. Um, and she's got a pretty decent supply for scrapbooking, quite a few things for altered art. She's really into the dyes. I think what I like about that store is that the owner really stays on top of what things are trending.
Yeah.
So that's where I go for anything unique. The regular stuff, I go to like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or those kind of things.
Right.
Um, then my other favorite store that I go to is a place called Alpine Camera, but
Hmm.
I won't get into that. But there is for anybody who's into photography in the Chicago area, Alpine Camera and Des
Is the place
Plaines.
to go. She
Uh,
is not sponsored by them.
no, I am not sponsored by them, but I think over the years I've spent enough money in that camera store to to pay for their rent and their lights. But
Yep. I know about that. But it is a shame that a lot of the stores have gone out of business. We used to have a lot of
yes,
scrapbooking stores, 15 years ago or so, seemed to be the heyday of that. And they've died out. We only have one in our area right now, and she's great. But it must be a struggle. And it's happening with the fabric stores too. So everything's going online. anymore,
Right,
unfortunately,
right.
because I just like going in the store and looking at the stuff and, and
And
touching it and
touching.
yeah, and everything. And it's like a little treasure hunt kind of a deal. But online, it's not so the same way. But I guess that's the
Well, I
way.
think, you know,
What's that?
yeah, I think the most unfortunate thing with the stores closing is that those were the stores that would host people coming in. For example, I had a chance to first attend Tim Holtz workshops back in like
Mm,
2003 and 2004. And one of the places, she only had room for 8 people, but every time he was in Chicago, he would do uh, classes there because, from what I was told, she was the very first store owner in the United States to invite Tim Holtz to her
mm.
store. And so, whenever he was in the area, he always made it a point to teach at her store. But these different stores, they would have these different wonderful artists come in. And now that those stores are gone,
Yeah. And although you can take these classes online and do Zoom with them all, it's still not the same as being in the
no,
presence of one of them. Because I did a
right.
workshop years ago with Tim Holtz as well.
So,
And I mean,
yeah,
that was just the epitome of my whole crafting career was when I met Tim Holtz and did an all-day workshop with him. I mean, I was just
right.
gumsmacked or whatever they call gobsmacked, something like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of being, in the presence of gurus and things like that, who are your favorite experts or sources for information or assistance or creative ideas?
Well, I like watching videos that Jenny McGuire does,
Mm-hmm.
and Kathy Werner and Gina Kay. So those tend to be my regulars. And of course, whenever Tim Holtz does one of his videos, I like to watch those. But it's really, I'm not so much drawn to the individual. It's like, what are they doing? What's the
Mm,
person doing
right.
on YouTube? And if I like what I see, I think another example. I don't know the woman's name, but she has a channel called My Sister Scrapper,
Mm.
and she does the mini journals. And have gotten a lot of inspiration from her as well. So I just sort of like find what looks interesting in YouTube, and if I like the way the person presents and what they're doing, then I'll stick with their channel.
Yeah, I think that's true enough. That's what I do too. I mean, just because somebody is a guru in it and I like their things in the past doesn't necessarily mean that I'm afraid to go off and find somebody else out there.
Hmm.
Like Tim Holtz, I love him a lot, but I have found in the last few years in scrapbooking and mixed media world, there isn't a heck of a lot new under the sun. And Tim used to have a lot of innovative products and things, and he had lots of and he still
Yes,
does, but
yes, yes, he
it
does.
just doesn't have the spark that it gave me back, when I first discovered him and everything. Doesn't mean I don't follow him. I still do. But even though I'm more of a quilter now. But anyways, yeah, there's lots of them
Yeah,
out there.
and I think it results in a change of taste, because I do love the grunge look, but
Hmm.
there are other looks that I like as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that goes back to what you were saying before about like becoming experimental or like trying new things all the time, the squirrel idea. Yeah. There's
yes,
lots of new things out there too, or different things that, you might want to try. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one, because I think that kind of, cuts down on your creative development. You got to explore. You got to give a challenge to yourself. Keep yourself going.
well, Stephen, that sounds like you're in a very nice way. Um, Supporting the fact that I have a rather short attention span.
You said it, I did not. Squirrel. There's a squirrel. So before I lose your attention span here, do you have any challenges or goals for future in terms of your projects you might like to do? I guess I'm saying, do you have a bucket list?
In terms of one project I would like to do, um, Jeannie and I have a sister who has a house out on Long Island, and when she first got it, she asked me for pictures. And so I had poster-sized uh, prints made of some nature photography that I had taken. And my one goal is to be able to do what's called a panorama photograph. And you may
Mm,
have seen them, they're the very long photographs.
yeah.
I would love to do one panorama because she has this perfect spot in her entryway for like a 6 foot panel. and I've got the camera, I've got the right camera and the right equipment to do that, to have it blown a picture blown up that big.
That would be
So
nice.
that's really my
Yeah.
one artistic thing that I would like to do.
Kind of sounds like it harkens back to if you could buy one of those great big huge printers for that. That would be great too, to work with that. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
that's a nice idea. Actually, you got to get working on that, I think, because I think your sister would really appreciate that. Okay, so what's that take me to? I'm just checking my notes here. Um, okay, so overall, and we've kind of touched on this, but overall, how would you describe yourself as an artist? Let's say that someone came out and they were putting you in a book and they needed a description of you as an artist for the book, for the first chapter or whatever. What would you say? What would you say? How would you describe yourself?
Uh, wow,
I put you
that
on the spot,
question.
didn't I?
Yeah, that question wasn't on the list.
Well, it was, but I reworded it. Well,
Oh, that was me. That was me.
I
How would
know.
I describe myself? Um, I would describe myself as an artist who likes to learn and an artist who does not take herself seriously.
Hmm.
I like to do things to the best of my ability, but don't. I'm not into this highfalutin. I can do this and I can do
Hmm.
that, and I have to follow these rigid rules. So I'd like to describe myself as somebody who's open to trying different things.
Hmm.
Um, guess that's
Yeah. I think from what I know of you from our meetings and different things over time now, I would say that's a really good description of you. You're very experimental. You're willing to try, and I relate to that because I'm willing to try anything. If it fails, it fails. I'm not going to cry
right.
over it because you learn something from the failures too. I mean, that's why I call my channel the Idiot Quilter. I like to point out that not everybody on YouTube or in the artistic world is perfect, because I think that holds a lot of people back from trying things because they're afraid they're going to fail before they even try.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I would say you're definitely fearless when it comes to that kind of thing. So there you are. I've got you labeled. You're a fearless artist. That's
Oh,
what you are.
okay. That works.
Yeah. Or maybe I should
That
say
works.
fierce artist, even better. So my last question right now is, do you have any advice for anyone who might just be getting started in any form of art, whether it be sewing, whether it be scrapbooking, photography?
I think one piece of advice I would give would be don't be afraid to try. I think what happens to many people, and I certainly did this to myself, I would see something and I would say, oh, that looks really, really neat, but I could never do that.
Mm,
And that to me is like an automatic killer. I think so don't be afraid because you never know. I think another thing that I would advise people is don't compare yourself to other people, because I know that one of the things that I was into was bullet journaling, and I would watch these videos, and these people would do these amazing layouts, and I was like, oh my gosh, is that what I'm supposed to be doing? And I can't do that. And then I finally said to myself, you don't have to do it like that. This is supposed to be fun. So
right.
do what you can do and have fun with it. And I think that that's no matter what you're trying, have fun with it. And like you said, if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Um, and accept where have reasonable expectations. I think, well, you know that I recently decided I wanted to teach myself to sketch. Well, I know I'm never going to be like a Leonardo da Vinci, or I'm not going to be able to paint like Jackson Pollock, but I have progressed. I'm past stick figure phase, which is where I started. And so just have fun. Don't be afraid to try. And when you do stuff by yourself, who cares? Nobody else is going to see it. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's all really good advice with that. I can definitely say that I relate to all of those things that you have said. So, on that note, I want to thank you for this interview. Is there anything you want to say just before we sign off here?
keep, keep, keep. Oh, can't even get it out. What is that? You say rented lips? Yes,
Yeah.
I have rented lips. Um, just enjoy. It's supposed to be a hobby, and if doing a hobby stresses you out, you may as well drop the hobby and go back to work. So have fun with it. Just have fun, whatever it is you're doing.
Those are no truer words have been said about that. So I hope people who hear this interview take that to heart, because that's so true. Well, I want to thank you, Andy, for doing this today. I know I had to pull a little bit of your teeth there to get you into it, but see, I didn't bite you, and it's all good. So thank you so much, and I'm just going to sign off on the recording right now, but please stay on the line for a minute. So
Okay.
once again, thank you for doing this.